Education. America's school system has been stuck inside the same structure, but that world has begun to change. By embracing the best ideas from a myriad of disciplines, we are transforming the shape of education. Welcome to MASH Ed Up. Reimagine education.
So before I get going today, just want to do a couple of quick housekeeping things. Number one, I've got my Baskin Robbins going on, which means I'm like 32 flavors of nervous. And so if I freak out and kind of lose my way in this talk, do me a favor and heckle. That'll help out a lot. Second thing, I just want to take a minute to shout out for TED, because I love TED. Thank you, TED. I love TED. I remember when I first discovered TED online, I spent all night with the headphones on, watching like talk after talk after talk, till it felt like my eyes were going to bleed. Next day, I called my dad up and I said, "Dad, have you seen TED?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been following that for years. What are you talking about? They're great. I love them." I said, "I want to be there. I want to be in that audience. I want to sit at a live TED." And my dad said, "Oh, I don't know, Dave. That's a hard ticket to get. I've never been the one, right?" So I just want to ask real quick, Dad, how's your seat, brother? All right. So, what if a Jewish person turned into a vampire? Corinne asked me one day when he should have been working on his essay. But I said, "I don't know, what are you talking about, Corinne?" He said, "Well, would a Jewish vampire be afraid of a Star of David like regular vampires are afraid of a cross?" I said, "Well, the nice thing about vampires is that they're literary characters and not based on any kind of fact, so frankly, he can do anything you want him to do." So I guess the big question is, what do you think the Jewish vampire would do? And this got into a long conversation about like how vampires are used as literary devices and what it might mean given the choices that Kieran might make about his character, like what that might mean about his idea of faith and goodness and the nature of God. Same class, but a different year. 14-year-old girl comes up to me and says, "You know, we've been reading here in Hammurabi's code, and we get it that if the floods come and the levees break and the floodwaters ruin my neighbor's land, that I'm responsible, right, for the ruined crops. I get that. But what if I'm renting the land?" I said, "I don't know. Let's look it up." Just 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine wrote to me, a friend from college when we were undergrads together. She's now in a credential program, and she's doing her pre-service teaching. She writes to me and says, "I would love to come back and talk to you and watch you teach, because I'm in this great program, and I got a great master teacher, but he teaches English all day, and then I take over and teach history, so I never get to watch history being taught. Never get to watch it being modeled. And I wish I could. I wish I could invite this friend back to my classroom. I wish I could explore the next great questions with students. I wish I could keep track of the vampire Goldberg, but unfortunately I can't, because I'm out of the classroom." And it's a bittersweet problem that I have, because now I'm the coordinator for this grant that we're doing at our school, redesigning the school, trying to serve kids better. But the cost for me personally is that for this year and next year, I'm out of the classroom. I think that's too bad. I think it's too bad that teachers are siloed over here, teaching in their classrooms. And meanwhile, over here, the principal, a former teacher, is running the school. And then over here, you've got people like me, teachers on special assignment, who are running the grant or designing the professional development for their site or writing some curriculum guides for their district. Meanwhile, downtown, you've got other former teachers doing all kinds of other work. In fact, over 50% of the people who we're paying with education dollars aren't in front of kids. And I think that's too bad. Meanwhile, over here, you've got professors who are training the next generation of teachers. Some of them actually had been classroom teachers, but many not. And then over here, you got politicians, many of whom haven't been in a classroom since they were students, trying to tell teachers and administrators and district superintendents, all of them telling them how we should be doing our job better. Meanwhile, we're not really buying it. And so TED's all about big ideas, and here's the big idea. It's a big idea that I can't personally claim. I just got on board with this group after they got done publishing their new book. Great group of people out of North Carolina called the Teacher Leaders Network. Their big idea is teacherpreneurs. What the heck's a teacherpreneur? Well, it's a mouthful. It's also a concept by which educational leaders can keep a foot in the classroom and really know what's going on, where the rubber of their ideas and policies really hit the road of learning and teaching. It's also a way for practicing teachers to be able to do the policy work and the curriculum instruction and the design that we'd like to do. Because there's lots of us who are doing that kind of work right now, but we're doing it in the evenings, or we're doing it on the weekends, and we're really relying on the loving support of our spouses and families. Right, Wendy? See, yesterday was our one-year wedding anniversary, and where was I? I was at TED getting ready for today. She even ironed my shirt today so I'd look good. She hates doing that. So, teacherpreneurs. I envision this idea of people who've got a foot in both worlds and are able to do so with just one job rather than trying to hold down 2 or 3. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine a high school math teacher who gets done teaching her math class all day, sits down with lunch with her co-principal, debriefs about how the morning went, what still needs to get done so that she can take over her role of leading the school, while the morning principal goes and teaches his classes? Can you imagine a middle school teacher who doesn't show up till after lunch because in the mornings he's at the university training the next generation of teachers and doing the research and writing the curriculum guides that they're going to be using in the schools? Can you imagine an elementary school teacher who works Monday through Wednesday with her students so that on Thursday she can turn over the class to her co-teacher, and then off she goes to the state capitol to advise the Department of Education? Can you imagine? Can you imagine what kind of educational policy we would have if Arnie Duncan took 5 weeks off this summer to teach summer school? Can you imagine 600, 1,200, 1,000 teachers, teacherpreneurs, out there doing a little bit of both? Teachers who've got time in the middle of the day, just an hour or 2, to do some research about curriculum and instruction and design the professional development that they're going to lead their fellow teachers on at their site. Can you imagine what the educational landscape might look like if we had teachers run an educational policy and run an educational politics in this country? I can tell you what I can imagine. First thing, the bubble in the test goes. There wouldn't be room anymore in our schools for kids to sit down in rows and take a number 2 pencil in a digital world to fill in little bubbles, and that's somehow explaining like what they know. There wouldn't be room anymore for those kinds, for textbooks that say, read chapter 12, section 3, and answer these 6 questions for homework tonight. There would be a lot more room for design. There would be a lot more room for creativity. There would be a lot more room for project-based learning, where kids got out of the classroom and out of the school and into the community, exploring real-world problems and bringing their own wide-eyed expertise to these situations. There would be a lot more room for collaboration among students and amongst teachers. There would be a lot more room for connectivity. There'd be a lot more room for creativity. There'd be a lot more room for Jewish vampires.